welcome back.
Welcome, yes.
We are going to be filming our top 5 favorite books that we read in 2019.
Yes.
Caveat before we start this video, these books weren't necessarily published in 2019.
Absolutely.
These books were just books that we read in
fact,
2019.
none of mine were published
Really?
in 2019. No.
Dang.
No,
All right.
no. I got a couple of oldies on here.
Do you?
Oldies.
These were goodies.
You didn't have a number 5.
No.
So I guess that means I have to start.
I
Not
had-
a great reading year for
No.
you. No.
Okay.
I had more than 5 and had to...
Did you really?
I had like some that were on the maybe list, and then I kind of had to choose from the
You
maybe
had to be
list,
like,
so-
you're cut.
I did. I had to
No
cut, I
way.
had to cut some, yeah. And I had a last minute one that I just finished reading like a week ago that bumped up to number 2.
No way.
Yeah, so somebody got axed
Oh,
off of the
dang.
list. So
No, I had a terrible reading year this year.
no, I agree.
Just in general.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read as many books as I wanted to, or I was hoping to, I guess.
Well,
A lot of the books I read I didn't like. I mean, they were okay, but I didn't love them. And
now will you abandon a book that you aren't into?
yeah,
Yeah. See, I don't.
I'll
do
just
that.
be like,
Well, it has to be.
peace.
I have to. Yeah. No, it has to be pretty
terrible?
bad for me to abandon it. Well, I will start with number 5. My
yeah,
number
you go
5,
first
since
because
you didn't
I
have
only
one.
have 4.
So, my number 5 was The House with a Clock at Its Walls
I've never
by
heard of that
John
before.
Bellairs. It was, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It was originally published in January of 1973.
Dang.
So I'll tell you, this is how I came across it. I
Yeah,
went to
tell
the
me.
movies like a year ago, and they made it into a movie.
Oh, did they?
Starring Jack Black, Kate Blanchett, and a little boy I didn't know.
Okay.
But I saw the preview, and I thought the preview looked good, so I bought the book, and promptly forgot about it. Sat on my shelf, never thought about it again.
Right.
Then, leading up to this, after we had discussed doing these videos and hoping to hit 30, I literally chose the book that was the shortest on my to be read. I didn't put how long it is, but it's only I don't even think it's 300 pages.
Really?
So that is the sole reason I picked it up. It was on the shelf, and I needed to bump up my number. I was feeling the pressure, so I grabbed it. And I loved it. It was great.
That is so awesome.
It was, the number one word that comes to mind is quirky.
Yeah.
I thought it was quirky. This is obviously 1973. This is well before Harry Potter.
Right.
But it feels magical, and it has sort of a Harry Potter vibe.
Does it?
We're talking about an orphan around the same age. I think he's a little bit younger than Harry Potter was. And he's surprised by magic. He doesn't know that this exists.
Right.
So there's those 3 similarities. Something that I think is really important is it highlights a platonic relationship between, not necessarily with this little boy, but so he goes, the beginning of the book, he's going to live with his uncle because his parents have died.
Okay.
So he's going to live with his uncle, and his uncle is sort of the weird uncle, the quirky uncle.
Right.
And he, doesn't really know him all that well. Well, turns out his uncle has a very platonic relationship with his next door neighbor, Mrs. Zimmerman. And I love that there's a male, female character of a certain age, they have an 8-year-old, the uncle has an 8-year-old nephew.
Right.
And they're in a completely platonic relationship. So, and that's not something you really hear about a lot. And I think it's important in a children's book. I think it's a great opportunity to teach kids that, not all male-female relationships are romantic.
Yeah.
It's definitely geared towards younger audiences.
Okay.
This would be like a middle school book, like you were talking
middle
about.
grade, yeah.
So the people who I think might like it are your Harry Potter fans. So it feels magical. It does have a slightly creepier vibe than Harry Potter.
Does it?
So, sort of, if you imagine sort of Harry Potter and The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh.
So, a little bit of that creepy vibe, but not too creepy for kids. If you like Harry Potter because of the magic and you want something that's got just a little bit of creep.
Tell me more about the plot. Just a little snippet.
Okay. So yes, this little boy goes and live with his uncle, and he notices that his uncle has all of these clocks. There's clocks everywhere.
Okay.
And his uncle is up all night. He keeps, he has these sort of weird habits. He's very laid back in terms of a parental figure. He doesn't tell him when he has to go to bed. Like, he gives him, he has cookies for supper. Like, there's all these kind of weird... Yeah, but he starts noticing that his uncle has some weird habits sort of in the middle of the night. He's going around and he's stopping all of these clocks. And then when he asks him about it, he's sort of wishy-washy on what he was doing, why he was doing it. And the little boy kind of wants to investigate a little bit more as to what is going on. With his uncle. So that it's being told from that perspective. It's also being told from the perspective of the uncle and Mrs. Zimmerman, who is like a super fun character. His uncle tells him that he's a warlock, and
that's fun.
You know, it's just sort of little boy
kind of like
experiencing that. Yeah, it's a whole series.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a whole series. So this is just the first
one.
That's
the book one. Okay.
And then the author did pass away. Oh. So, but the books continued. So I don't know
who picked them up.
I don't know. I only noticed when I went on Goodreads to click want to read on the next ones in the series, and I noticed it kept going, and that and the name did change, but the characters and the series are the same.
Right.
So somebody obviously picked it up. I don't know if it was a relative. I can't even remember if the name was the same. If it was the last name, but we'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely setting up for a whole series. You can tell that this isn't a standalone novel when you read it. So that's my number 5.
So my number 4 book was titled Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This book was published this year, 2019. Oh, wow. Yeah, so it's brand new. I know. I am not someone who typically reads thrillers regularly.
Right, I know that about you.
Yeah, but it was like October, so like Halloween, spooky month.
Feeling kind of creepy.
Yeah, so I was like, well, you know, I don't read a lot of thrillers like regularly throughout the year, so I'll just like...
Good time to do one.
Yeah,
get you in the Halloween
like
vibe.
Ones that are like, you know, kind of appeal to me. I'll read them, get me in the spooky mood, you know. So, this story was super creepy.
And you stuck with it.
Yeah.
It's on your list. I'm so impressed.
Super creepy, super atmospheric. The story follows the main character. Her name is Jules. She has just lost her job. She just walked into her apartment that she shares with her boyfriend to find out her boyfriend's been cheating on her.
God.
Yeah, it was So she moves in with her friend. Her parents have passed away. Her sister went missing as a teenager, so she's either still missing or presumed dead. So she has no family. She's kind of living on her friend's couch. Not really something that she wants to be doing.
Not in a
so she's browsing the Craigslist ads, and she sees an ad for an apartment sitter at this really swanky old building that's like a lot of like rich people live in this building. So she figures, awesome, it'll get me off my friend's couch, money. Quick cash.
The grandeur.
And this apartment building was the setting in this book that she and her sister loved to read as kids. This was like their favorite book. It's still her favorite book. So she's like, oh my God, like what a great experience.
Yes.
So she answers the ad, gets the job. The place is really creepy. There's lots of like really strange rules that she can't follow. She can't have any visitors.
Red flag there.
Yeah, she can't speak to any of the
other residents,
tenants that are there. There's other apartment sitters in the building, so it's not like she's the only one. She ends up meeting up with one. They become friends. The other apartment sitter tells her, you know, I think there's like creepy stuff going on here. Like,
I think I would like this book.
You would. There's creepy stuff going on. I don't think it's 100% safe. They kind of develop a friendship. She reminds Jules of her sister. So she's very drawn to this person because she reminds her a lot of her sister that's missing. This isn't any spoilers, by the way. Like, if you're wondering...
I'm impressed with the synopsis. I was not prepared.
If you're like, Robyn, easy. But no, this is no spoilers. So then, all of a sudden, the next day, they were planning on going to meet at the park. The friend is not answering texts. The friend is missing. She is vanished.
This sounds like a Dateline episode.
I mean,
yeah, I think
you would love it.
I would definitely like this book.
typically when I read a thriller, I don't read a lot, but when I read them, I'm like expecting like the best of the best. Okay.
Wow, you have high
Like
expectations.
normally I get to the end and I'm like, I get to like the twist, because there's always a twist, and I'm like, boring, you know, like I could have thought of something better.
I know that about Robyn.
Right. So
She's hard to impress.
Yeah, and
thriller writers
this
out there.
right.
Yeah.
This book I did not see.
The twist.
No. And even though I didn't see it, it lived up to my expectations.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
This book is great for those people that like thrillers,
Yes.
like you. You would love this. So people that like really I love an atmospheric book.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be creepy.
Right.
It has to be scary. It just has to have a good atmosphere where you can feel that you're there.
Wow.
This,
Had that.
yeah,
Exciting.
that is my number 4.
Awesome. So
Okay.
my number 4 was an audiobook. And
Okay.
this was that 56-hour monstrosity that I mentioned.
Jeez.
So this was A Breath of Snow and Ashes by Diana Gabaldon. So originally published in September of 2005. So this
The year we graduated high school.
The year we graduated high school. Spoiler. So why did I pick this one up? Well, it's the 6th in the series. So I kind of had to keep going.
Right.
So I've read the other ones.
And clearly you like them.
And clearly I like
because
them.
you did 56
I did
hours
56.
of one title in that
And you should
series.
see this thing, like, the actual book is like, you could defend yourself against predators.
It's a door stopper.
With it. It's a door stopper. Why I loved it, and this isn't necessarily a credit to the story itself, but the narrator on these is top notch.
Really?
Davina Porter. Yes. She is top notch. She's a talented storyteller. It's easy to distinguish. I know which character is speaking.
Yeah.
But not in an over-the-top way. So I know when it's Jamie versus Claire versus Ian, but it's subtle.
Right.
So it's not over the top. It sounds very natural. I enjoy finer details in books. So this one takes place in a farm setting. And I love the details of like day-to-day farm life. Now some people might find that monotonous. Some people might get a little tired of that. I like the fact that it's lots of small stories in a larger story. Because when you're reading a monster, and I wrote down, it is 1,157 pages long. So when you're reading a monster
Good
like
for
that,
you for like tackling that.
it feels like a marathon when it's
Yeah.
over, but in a good way. In a good way.
I suppose, yeah. If you like
I've never
it,
done a
obviously.
marathon in my life, an actual physical one, but I imagine when you finish,
That
it
is what
feels
it's
kind of
like.
like this.
Yeah.
So I love that there's lots of small stories in this huge monstrosity of a book because it feels like you're getting somewhere.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what I mean?
yes, I do know.
I
what you mean.
feel a natural place to like, okay, now I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
for the, but there's a lot to unpack because it is such a big book in a big series.
Yeah.
too. Like
Oh
I mean,
my
this is
gosh.
the 6th one. Who would like this? History buffs, specifically American history buffs, because they're in America. For
Oh, are they
reasons.
really?
Yes, they work their way over.
Oh.
Yep. And romance lovers. I mean, you can't ignore, and if you've watched the show, you can't ignore the chemistry between these characters in the book and on the show.
Yeah.
You can't. So those are the people who I think would enjoy.
So if there's some people out there that don't know what Outlander is.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, get out from under that rock you're living under. Because it's on Netflix. So steal someone's password or whatever it is you got to do. And start watching the show. Now, I'm obviously quite a bit ahead. Because
Yeah.
there's only, I think, it's the 4th season, or the 5th season is coming on TV. This is the 6th book. Hold that thought. This is obviously directly from the back of the book, but this is the first one, so this is how it
Very
started.
dusty.
So Claire Randall, a former combat nurse, is back from the war and reunited with her husband. When she walks through a standing stone in an ancient stone circle on the British Isles, and suddenly she's an outlander in Scotland in 1743. So, time travel. I would call this fantasy. Science
little bit,
fiction,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Because
the first one is the best one, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with
Right.
you have to just adjust your expectations. But probably because it's new and it's different. A Breath of Snow and Ashes is the 6th in the series, so, and even this one, the first one, like, this is like 600 and some pages, so, like, they are a marathon, not a sprint. If you're gonna get into this, I suggest taking little breaks in between books, not like me, just going from book to book to book to book, because then you can't remember what took place in which book.
Yeah, that's true.
So take a little break,
they all blend in.
Reflect on what you've read, and, keep going with it.
My third favorite book of 2019 was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was so good. This book was published in 2019. Again, I know. This book is a oral history of a fictional band that existed in the 1970s.
Okay.
They were extremely, extremely popular.
Yes.
And they broke up in the midst of their popularity. And nobody knows why up until this oral history is released. So, like I said, this explains why the band broke up. So, reading this, we start to see the cracks, like what started forming, the split with the group.
And I see it's from Reese Witherspoon's book club.
Yeah, she actually chose it. Now, the book is actually told in an interview. Like, see if you can see, like an interview format. So like if you were picking it up and like expecting it to read like just like a regular book, it would be like very jarring.
Right.
I actually read this on audio, and like hands down, that's the best way to read it.
Oh, I would think so.
So the book is actually narrated by a full cast, which the author chose. Like she's the one that cast each character herself.
Audiobooks with
so the Daisy Jones is narrated by Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing.
Yes.
Benjamin Bratt is another voice in here. And Judy Greer. Do you know who I mean? She's always like the friend.
She's
like
a co-star. That's what she calls herself. She's always the co-star.
Yeah. Well,
she's never the main character. She's always the co-star.
Right.
Yep.
So she's
Canadian?
Is she?
I think she is.
That's very cool. So. She's one of the voices in this book.
Awesome. Love that.
The book feels like nonfiction.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's what
I don't want to say too much about the plot other than what I said. It's an oral history of why the group split up. Because, like, if we were fans of the group, like, we're loving them, and then all of a sudden it's like Daisy Jones and the Six are no more.
Well, and of course there's no
end.
social media and things like in 1970 where we may hear about the cracks now.
Yeah.
That really, so that wouldn't really happen in 2019, probably, like, out of the blue.
In 1970.
No, I mean, it wouldn't happen now.
No.
But it would happen then.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So this was
interesting.
Right. So it kind of starts to expose like what was happening. You're getting different perspectives because it's told in that interview format.
Yes.
The book feels like nonfiction.
Yeah.
Like when you're done reading that book, you feel like you're like, oh my God, that was so good. I'm gonna just hop on Spotify and listen to their music.
Yeah.
But there's none because they don't exist.
They don't exist.
Like this book was so good. So what I will say though is like the book is about a 70s rock and roll group.
Right.
You don't have to like 70s rock and roll. No. I do. I love music from the 70s. You don't have to like music from the 70s to like this book. It talks about addiction, human relationships. Those are things that anybody can relate to.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So anyway, Daisy Jones and the Six.
Period.
Yes.
Yes.
Daisy Jones and the Six. 5 stars. Go read it if you haven't. Do it.
Excellent. Okay, so number 3, we are throwing it way back here with Death on the Nile, Agatha Christie. You ready for this? Originally published November 1937.
Oh my gosh.
1937. So, I picked this up because, well, first of all, it's being made into a movie this year, in October, and it is a favorite among Agatha Christie readers.
Oh, really?
Because
I didn't know that.
Agatha Christie. This was like my unofficial year of Agatha Christie. So I was sort of, there's a lot to go through. So I was kind of looking up, like, what are other people's favorites?
Oh, that's so cool.
And this is on every list in, like, the top 5.
No way.
Yep. This is a Hercule Poirot story. Kind of I would say, almost middle of the stories that are told about him.
Okay.
So, not a lot of like introduction about the character, right? But
these books, sorry to interrupt you, but
no.
these books are ones that you could easily just pick up.
Yes.
Like you don't have to like learn all this backstory.
I have not read these in any order at all. I've literally just, again, went through, sort of wanted to hear what everybody else's favorites were. I thought if I'm going to introduce myself, why not pick the ones that are known favorites? Because then if I don't like those ones, there's probably less likely a chance I'm going to like other ones. So, so the cast of characters, including the good detective, are on a cruise of the Nile. There's a recently married socialite named Lynette Ridgway, and she gets shot. And she gets shot. And so obviously it's in a confined space, so your list of suspects is very much who was on that boat.
And then there were none.
And then there were none. Absolutely. You're kind of limited in who your suspects can be. So one thing I will say too is, with all the Agatha Christie books that I've read, it says on the back of the book who is going to be killed.
Okay.
So you know that when you start the story, but it's not like it happens in the first 5 pages. Like, it takes a couple of chapters, so you do get a backstory on your victim, as well as the other. So you're starting the book knowing that this person is going to die. It's usually not who is going to die, you already know who that is. But you learn a little bit about them before that happens. So so that's interesting. So the reasons why I love it, well, first of all, I love a good mystery. Agatha Christie does them very well. I love to travel.
You do?
I do. And this is Egypt is someplace that I do hope to go to someday. So usually if there's travel included in the story, that's just like an extra perk for me.
Right.
Whether because that makes it more relatable, or because I'm learning about a location that I've either already been to or would like to go to. Or it might inspire a new sort of travel place that I want to go to.
Yeah.
So I love when people are on vacation. And again, we're talking about a cruise in, almost the 1940s. There's a certain luxury and grandeur that goes with that. So I like the little details of life at that time, or what was considered luxury and grandeur at that time, without giving too much away. So this Lynette Ridgway, at the beginning of the story, her best friend comes to her with the man that she's engaged to. Okay. Jumps ahead a bit. Lynette is now married to him.
Oh.
Yes.
Scandalous.
So the story is told from several different perspectives, but it's told from both women at the beginning, obviously, before Lynette is killed. And you can really feel for both women in this scenario. Okay. You can. Even though, in theory, Lynette is the bad guy here. Right. You sympathize with her, and you sympathize with the best friend. Right. It's really hard it was really hard for me to be like, oh well, she's the bad guy and this is a scorned woman. Right. Because there's and again, you'll learn that there's things that are going on. So I thought it was interesting that reading this story that I can empathize with both. Yeah, in the scenario. So it's also a quick read at 352 pages. So, when I'm reading other things that are like over 1,000, this is nice to sort of just kind of, and it had a satisfying ending. Who would like it? Fans of other detectives. Like, if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, pick this up. It would make a great vacation read. I wasn't on vacation when I read it, but I feel like it would. Yeah. Because the characters are on vacation. If you like that kind of thing, I do like that kind of thing. Yes. So that's who... If you're new to Agatha Christie, again, because the movie is coming out. So that is my number 3.
My second most favorite book of 2019 is a book called Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Have you heard of this book?
Never.
No?
Nevermore.
So this book is a middle grade book. So that means it's like...
Quick, I would think.
Targeted for the ages like... 8, 9 to like 11. Okay. It's very reminiscent of Harry Potter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that we're getting all these Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's the first in a series.
Okay. Yeah.
So Morgan Crow is a cursed child. So she is set to die on her 11th birthday. On the eve of her 11th birthday, she can hear like death coming, like it's like a stampede of horses. Like this.
Like the Horsemen of the Apocalypse?
Kinda.
Reference?
Like coming for her.
Oh.
But before she's whisked away by death, she is taken to Nevermore by this man named Jupiter North to compete in a series of trials. That's why it's called the Trials of Morgan Crow.
Oh, okay.
And if she does well in these trials, she will then be able to join the Wonder Society, which Jupiter North is a member. So he's like her sponsor. The book then goes through all of her trials. It explains more. It's the first book in a series. So
Right.
like there's
a lot of character development. I would
lots
think.
of character introduction, lots of world building. It's very like if it's going to offend a person that it's very similar to Harry Potter, they shouldn't read it. Like there's lots of magic, there's exciting plot points, there's friendships. But if you're okay with experiencing that again, then that's fine.
Right.
But it's not like a dead ringer. There's a lot of parallels.
Wow.
So like if that's something that you're going to be like, what a ripoff.
Right. Then
Don't
bother.
read it. Don't even bother.
Right.
This book was so fun. So exciting. I can't wait to read it with Liam. Like, I have a 4-year-old son, and I can't wait till he gets a little bit older that he'll sit through, like, a chapter book.
Right.
Because, like, he will love it. And, spoiler alert, I think I liked it more than Harry Potter.
Wow.
Those are, like, big words.
That's a big declaration.
That is a big declaration, and I, like, honestly think I did. And I normally don't like fantasy. That is another thing. I normally don't like fantasy books. I loved this book.
Wow.
This was so fun. So if you
don't necessarily identify with fantasy, maybe.
Right, you will like it.
Yeah.
Also, if you're like, oh, it's middle grade, like, but you know what? Stop it. Because a good book is a good book.
Yes, we are not book snobs here.
No.
I don't care if you read Twilight or War and Peace. Just read.
Just read.
Just
do
read.
it.
If it's middle school books,
It's fine.
If it's encyclopedias, read.
Do it. So that was my second favorite book of the year.
So my number 2, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this. It's my favorite genre. So it's called the Boleyn King by Laura Anderson. This is a more recent one for me.
So this isn't like Philippa Gregory, because I know she's your gal pal.
And that's why, because she's my gal pal and she's so good at what she does, I was so shocked that I liked this book as much as I did. Now, no offense to Laura Anderson, but she's no Philippa Gregory.
Right.
However, I could not put this book down.
Oh, fun.
It was one of those, and I think it's the premise. So it was originally published in May of 2013, so compared to my other books on this list, fairly recent.
Really?
And so the premise is extremely interesting to me. There's an author note at the beginning that sets it up beautifully, and I'm going to give you a sort of Cole's Note version. So, and this is true. So on November 29th in the year 1536, Anne Boleyn miscarried a baby boy of approximately 4 months gestation. This was really the beginning of the end for her.
Okay.
Henry is starting to lose faith in her. He feels he's running out of time because he still doesn't have a son. He's losing his patience. And she's arrested on May 2nd of that year, and she's beheaded on the 19th of May that same year. Yeah, big year for her.
Yeah, it was
11 days later, he goes on to marry Jane Seymour, who eventually does give him a son.
Okay.
So what this story is, what if Anne Boleyn hadn't miscarried that baby and delivered a healthy baby boy in the summer of that year?
So it's like an alternate history.
It is an alternate history. That's what this is about. So he's never married Jane Seymour. He has a healthy son named William. Keeping in mind, Elizabeth, who was eventually Henry's successor, went on to reign for like 50-some years, 55 years, I believe. She's already been born because she was born first. So she is still in this story in a different capacity.
Oh.
So, she, in real life, she was declared a bastard, and she her status sort of went up and down kind of depending on her father's mood. Well, in this book, she's never not a princess. Even though, because it's a male is typically going to get priority over the female heirs. So it's really interesting. I'm an Anne Boleyn fan. I'm a history buff. I love what this explores.
Yeah.
So I had high hopes. For it, and it delivered. So the reason I picked it up, I love historical fiction. I love the what if factor here.
Yeah.
What would have happened if she had delivered that baby?
Yeah. That's really cool.
The entire history would have
changed.
So, again, fair warning, she's no Philippa Gregory. Don't go into this thinking this is going to be the other Boleyn girl or the Constant Princess or the Virgin's Lover. This one, because it's an alternate history.
Right.
Isn't that sort of, same amount of research wouldn't necessarily go into it,
Right.
obviously. I kept wanting to pick it up.
That's like the sign
it's
of
a
a
trilogy.
good book.
It's actually a trilogy.
Is it really?
Yes. So I am very excited to pick up the next two in the series. So this is for your historical fiction fans, or your Anne Boleyn fans, like me. And this one came out of nowhere. This one went from, I just finished it last week.
Was this the one that you were like...
This is the one that went
move
boom,
over.
Right on. There was only one other book, and this was flip a coin over which one I liked more this year.
No way.
Yeah. The ending was a little bit... I don't want to say it was anticlimactic, because that's not true. But you can clearly tell that this is the first in a trilogy.
Right.
If I had read this as a standalone novel, I might have thought, okay, I expect it. But there's an ending, and it's clearly setting up for future books as well.
My number one favorite book of 2019 was Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny. Louise Penny is a Canadian cozy mystery author.
Interesting.
Yes.
A Canadian modern Agatha Christie, if you will.
Exactly. Okay. This book was originally published in 2005. All of these stories are set in the province of Quebec. This book is part of the Inspector Gamache series. The main character is a detective for the police force in Quebec, so he's not like an RCMP officer.
Okay.
He's for the Quebec police force.
Yep.
His name is Armand Gamache. He is a lovely, lovely man. These books are very, very atmospheric. Each mystery stands on its own, but there are little stories of the side characters and the main character they kind of build upon with each novel. So could you pick it up out of the blue? Could you pick Bury Your Dead up out of the blue? Probably.
Right.
Would it make more sense if you started at the beginning and went through? Absolutely. Yes. So I personally, having read 6 of these books, having started at the beginning, I would absolutely recommend starting at the beginning with Still Life. That's the first book in the series. And every book, layers are shed. So we begin to understand these characters a little bit more. Louise Penny writes about the motivations of the characters. So they're true of maybe what makes us human.
Characters have
we all have good parts. We all have bad parts. As I said, Gamache is he's such a wonderful man. And when you read most detective novels, the main detective, he's a hardened man. He is not. No. He is a very, very kind, he is a very fair man. He looks for the goodness in everybody, even the people that he's investigating. I love Louise Penny. Right. She is probably one of my favorite authors of all time. Oh, this series currently has, 12 or 13 novels.
Wow.
As I said, they follow Armand Gamache. This is Still Life. This is the first book in the series. This is the one I recommend starting with. In this one, we're introduced to everybody. Armand Gamache is sent to a fictional town in Quebec called Three Pines. Great. So it's set in Quebec, but the specific town that a lot of these side characters live in is not. It doesn't actually exist. Okay. There is a woman that is found dead in the woods. She is a fixture in the community. She's a retired school teacher.
So sorry, is this the first one or the one you just finished?
Sorry, this is the first one. Because I don't want to give the summary of the 6.
Yes.
So this is kind of to give you an idea. She is found in the woods dead on Thanksgiving morning.
Okay.
So that's this book. That's not my favorite book, but again, if you want to read my favorite book, start here and then read 5 more. I love Three Pines. I love all the side characters. They're so funny. I said about Anne of Green Gables, we did another video, which I'll link in the description box. It's our booktube newbie tag. I talked about Anne of Green Gables and how reading it was like a hug. This is like the modern day hug. Anne of Green Gables. It's not Anne of Green Gables, but it gives me the same feeling.
Right. I'm getting so much to be read inspiration.
Your TBR is
right
growing.
now. My TBR is growing.
So
mentally, right now, I'll put it in.
That is my favorite book.
Awesome.
Bury Your Dead by Louise Penny is my favorite book.
And again, this was not from this year. I didn't have any from this year.
Right.
My favorite book, now depending on where you're watching this from and where you buy the book, the title is actually different.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, my number 1 was, here in North America, The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman.
Have you read that before?
No. Never read it before.
Oh.
The UK version is called Northern Lights.
Really?
Originally published in July of 1995.
Really?
The original. So, why I picked it up. It was recommended to me years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. When I worked in Halifax and I first got into reading, my old boss was also a sort of an avid reader.
Yeah.
And his wife loved these books and she lent it to me.
Okay.
And again, I found it wasn't really what I was looking for.
Okay.
At that time. The main character's name is Lyra. She's a child, takes place in a parallel universe.
Okay.
So your soul takes on the form of an animal known as a demon that lives outside of your body.
But not like an evil demon.
No, not at all. That's just a name for them. No, they're not evil. That is your soul. It just lives outside your body. So you have a constant companion.
Do you have a soul in your body? Or is it like
That is your soul. That is your soul. So, as a child, your demon changes form into different animals. When you hit puberty, it settles onto what it is going to be for the rest of your life.
Okay.
So her demon has a name. It's a very long name, and I can't pronounce it, but she calls him Pan.
Oh, wow. All right.
And he mostly, it really depends on her mood.
Okay.
So when she's afraid, sometimes he turns into, I'm sorry, if he's afraid and he feels that he's going to need to defend her, he'll change into like maybe a bobcat. That's an interesting premise to me. I like a strong female lead.
Yeah.
Which she is. She's brave, she's outspoken, she's loyal to her friends. So she is an orphan. She's an orphan who's growing up at a college called Jordan College. She was brought there under like a scholastic sort of immunity, maybe similar to like being dropped off at a church or something this day and age. And she grows up, the college is her home.
Okay.
So she's taught and sort of governed by the professors there.
How cool.
Which are all men. All men. There's women. There's women that do other things in the kitchen and things like that, but the scholarly sort of people. So it's her story.
I like that.
The reason I love the idea of this demon, this animal, that I'm a big animal lover. I love the idea of having this sort of constant physical companion in an animal form. I love it. It's a parallel universe, but it's similar to ours. If it's before our time or after our time.
Okay, yeah.
Like I can't. So it is a parallel universe, but there are similarities to today's world. I love Lyra. Sort of, she craves adventure. She's had this unusual upbringing growing up in the school. She craves leaving adventure. Okay. I know that. I know that feeling. She has to learn to trust herself. It's got a sort of anti-establishment feel to it. There's something called the magisterium, which tries its best to sort of control what is taught to the mass. I sort of like that fight the power that she has, right?
Yeah.
So again, without giving too much away, so at one point she has to leave the college.
Yeah.
And before she goes, the professor gives her something and he says, like, don't tell anybody that you have this. keep it with you at all times, and it's called an alethiometer or a golden compass. And she opens it up, and it's it has symbols all around it, and there's sort of like hands on a clock.
Yeah.
And he tells her, she asks what is it, and he says it tells the truth. So you use these symbols to ask questions, and then it uses the symbols to give you answers. The reason, and they're all supposed to be controlled by the magisterium.
Okay.
If you have the alethiometer, you're supposed to have all the books that go with it that teach you the meanings and the different layered meanings of all the symbols, because there's only so many symbols around the edge.
Right.
So it turns out that Lyra just knows how to read it. She doesn't need the books.
Oh.
She doesn't know that right away, but that happens fairly
Eventually,
quickly in the beginning of the series. So you learn more information about her backstory. There's like a prophecy about her. Like she's going to be a very important sort of child. So it's really her adventure. So who might like this? Fans of the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I would consider it somewhere in there, because sort of the same thing. Fan of the Hunger Games, it's sort of a futuristic telling in like a parallel universe, but there's definitely some, like the capital is very futuristic in Panem, but, the capital in Panem, but like District 12 is very taken back.
Yeah.
So this is similar in that way. Certain parts are very modern, and then other parts are very like back.
Right.
And so if you don't necessarily consider yourself a fan of YA, like myself, I don't consider myself to be a fan of young adult, but that doesn't mean that I won't read them.
Right.
Both my number 1 book and my number 2 were both from trilogies. I purposely didn't read the second ones because I knew that they would probably kick off other books off of my top 5 for this year.
So what book got kicked off?
What?
Because you said that one got kicked off when you finished
kicked
the
off. So
bowling
I had 2. Because I've had the top 5 for a while, and then but I've kept reading. So the Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie.
That one.
That was one that I had as like an honorable mention, or like it was on my top 5 at one point, but got kicked off. But I still really enjoyed it. And The King's Curse by Philippa Gregory, which is about Margaret Pole, who. Another kind of fascinating historical figure to me. That was on the list until I read until I read The Boleyn King, and that sort of got kicked off. But not for, I was just completely taken with The Boleyn King.
Yeah.
So those are our top
books
of
2019. So hopefully you watching this have found one or have heard of one that now you're interested in picking up.
Yep.
If you do, comment down below and let us know.
Absolutely.
Or let us know on Instagram. We would love to hear that we've maybe inspired you to pick up a book that you love.
Maybe wouldn't have thought
or
of.
Maybe you hate.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who
Because
knows?
everybody's different.
Who knows? And exactly. And I think it's interesting that I had books on my list this year that are like, I'm not typically a fan of young adult, and I had one on there.
Yeah.
It was my top book, and you're not typically a fan of thrillers.
I know.
And you had that on there. So don't get too hung up on the genre and whether or not it's one of your favorites. You know, be prepared to be surprised.
That's right.
Because I know we were.
Yep.
So that's it.
So thank you for watching.
Yes,
and
congratulations if you've made it to the end of this video. I don't know that I could listen to myself talk for this long.
But we will...
Thank you for watching.
Like and subscribe if you want more content from us.
Follow us on Instagram.
Yes.
If you can't get enough.
We'll see you in another video.
Bye.